The lights in the lower deck flickered as Hyunwoo Kim tightened the last bolt on the damaged power coupling. Sweat dripped from his forehead despite the cool air flowing through the maintenance tunnels of the stellar wind. The massive freighter had been his home for 3 years now, and he knew every pipe, every wire, and every sound it made. Hyunwoo was not an impressive man by any measure. At barely 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing no more than a bag of grain, he looked more like a student than a starship engineer. His black hair was always messy from crawling through tight spaces, and his work clothes were permanently stained with grease and coolant. The other crew members often forgot he existed until something broke down. The ship suddenly shuddered around him. Then came a sound that made his blood run cold. The deep hum of the hyperspace engines died away to nothing. Hyunwoo had heard that silence only once before during training, and it meant they had dropped out of hyperspace unexpectedly. He grabbed his tool bag and climbed up through the maintenance hatch to the main corridor. Other crew members were already moving toward their stations. Their faces showed the same worry that twisted his stomach. All crew to stations. This is not a drill. The voice of Soo-Jin Park crackled through the ship's speakers. As the communications officer, her usually calm voice now carried an edge of fear. We have been intercepted by unknown vessels. Captain Lee requests all department heads report to the bridge immediately. Hyunwoo was not a department head. He was barely considered crew by some of the others. But his job was to keep the ship running, and that meant he needed to know what was happening. He made his way to the observation deck where a crowd had gathered around the large viewing windows. Through the transparent metal, he could see them. 7 massive warships hung in space like hungry predators. Their dark hulls were covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Each ship was 3 times the size of the stellar wind. They came out of nowhere, whispered Dongsu, one of the cargo handlers. Soo-Jin says they were waiting for us. Captain Jin-Ho Lee's voice echoed through the ship from the bridge. The man sounded older than his 40 years as he spoke to the alien fleet. This is Captain Lee of the commercial vessel Stellar Wind. We are carrying medical supplies and food to the colony worlds. We have no weapons and pose no threat to you. The response came in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. The ship's computers translated the alien words into perfect Korean, but the tone remained cold and threatening. Human vessel, you will prepare for immediate boarding. All Terran life forms will be transferred to our ships for processing. A chill ran down Hyunwoo's spine. Processing. Everyone knew what that word meant when spoken by hostile aliens. It was a polite way of saying slavery or death. Sir, came the voice of Tai Min-yang, the ship's security chief. They're not offering terms. They're giving orders. Captain Lee tried again. We are civilians. We have families aboard this ship. Surely we can reach some agreement. There is no agreement, human. Your species has expanded too far into our territory. You will serve as examples to others. Comply or be destroyed. Through the viewing window, Hyunwoo watched as the alien ships moved closer. Their hulls bristled with weapons that could turn the stellar wind into scrap metal in seconds. He had worked on ships like this one for most of his adult life, and he knew they had no defenses against military vessels. Taemin, what are our options? Captain Lee asked over the comm system. The security chief's reply was grim. Sir, our shields might hold for 30 seconds against one of those ships. Against 7, we have no chance. Our emergency pods could evacuate maybe half the crew before they intercept us. In the observation deck, people began to cry. Some hugged their families. Others stared out at the alien fleet with empty eyes. Hyunwoo felt his hands shake as the reality sank in. After 3 years of peaceful trading runs, their luck had finally run out. Nari Choi, the ship's medical officer, moved through the crowd with her emergency kit. She helped an elderly passenger who had collapsed from fear and gave calming drugs to others who were having panic attacks. Her gentle voice tried to comfort people even though her own face was pale with terror. Everyone stay calm, she said. The captain will find a way out of this. But Hyunwoo could hear the doubt in her voice. There was no way out. The aliens had them completely surrounded, and their ships were designed for war while the stellar wind was built to carry cargo. Hyunwoo. Soo-Jin's voice called him through his personal communicator. We need you in the engine room. If we're going to try anything, We need full power to the engines. He looked around at the frightened faces of his fellow crew members. These people had become his family over the years. Sujin had taught him to play card games during the long journeys between stars. Captain Lee had promoted him when others said he was too young. Even Tae Min, who rarely spoke to anyone, had shown him how to use the emergency systems. "I'm on my way," Hyunwoo replied. He pushed through the crowd and headed for the lower decks. His small size helped him move quickly through the corridors, as other crew members rushed to their stations. In the engine room, massive power cores hummed with contained energy. The hyperspace drive that had carried them safely across dozens of star systems now sat cold and useless. Hyunwoo ran diagnostics on all systems. Everything was working perfectly, which somehow made their situation worse. The ship was fine, but it would not matter against those warships. As he worked, he noticed something strange on the long-range sensors. A new contact was approaching, the system from deep space. The signature was unlike anything in the ship's computer database. It was moving fast, faster than any ship should be able to travel in normal space. "Sujin," he called through his communicator. "Are you seeing this? On the sensors? Seeing what? I'm a bit busy with 7 alien warships threatening to kill us all. There's something else out there, something big coming in fast from the edge of the system." A pause. Then Sujin's voice came back, puzzled. "I see it now. What is that thing? The computer can't identify it." Through the observation windows, the alien fleet continued to close in on the stellar wind. But somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something else was racing toward them. Something that did not appear in any database of known ships. Hyunwoo stared at the sensor readings and felt a strange mix of hope and fear. Whatever was approaching them was massive and moving with impossible speed. It might be their salvation, or it might be something much worse than the aliens who already surrounded them. The small engineer gripped his tools tighter and waited to see what new danger the darkness would bring. The unknown contact on Hyunwoo's sensors grew larger as it approached the system. Whatever it was moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. The ship's computers worked frantically to analyze the incoming vessel. But every scan came back with the same result. Unknown design, unknown materials, unknown power source. "Captain," Sujin's voice carried tension through the ship's communication system. "The new contact is slowing down. It's definitely a ship, but unlike anything we've ever seen." Through the observation deck windows, the alien warships had stopped. Their advance toward the stellar wind. Their weapon systems remained active, but their attention had shifted to the approaching vessel. Even from a distance, Hyunwoo could see the alien ships changing formation, moving into what looked like a defensive pattern. The mysterious ship finally came into visual range, and gasps echoed through the corridors of the stellar wind. It was not built like any ship Hyunwoo had ever seen. Instead of metal plates and angular designs, this vessel looked almost alive. Its hull curved and flowed like the body of some great sea creature. Dark material covered its surface, but it seemed to pulse with inner light as if blood moved beneath its skin. "What is that thing?" whispered Dong-Soo over the comm system. Captain Lee's voice came from the bridge, filled with wonder and concern. "I've been in space for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like it." The bioship, as Hyunwoo found himself thinking of it, moved between the alien fleet and the stellar wind. It dwarfed even the largest warships, but it moved with the fluid motion of a living creature rather than the mechanical precision of a machine. Commander Velmoth, the leader of the alien fleet, sent a message that the ship's computers translated for everyone to hear. "Unknown vessel, you are interfering with a legitimate military operation. Identify yourself and withdraw immediately." For several long minutes, there was no response. The bioship simply hung in space, its surface continuing to pulse with that strange inner light. Then, without warning, a smaller craft detached from its hull. This smaller vessel was clearly designed for a single occupant, and it moved toward the stellar wind with obvious purpose. "Sir," Taemin Yang reported from the security station. "The small craft is requesting permission to come aboard." "Captain," Lee hesitated. They were already facing 7 hostile warships. Adding an unknown alien to their problems might make things worse. but they had no good choices left. "What does it want?" the captain asked. "It's transmitting in perfect galactic. Standard, sir. The being says it wishes to speak with our crew." Hyunwoo left his station in the engine room and joined the crowd gathering near the main airlock. Nari Choi stood ready with her medical equipment in case the visitor proved hostile. Taemin Yang had positioned himself where he could react quickly to any threat, though his small sidearm seemed pathetic compared to the forces surrounding them. The airlock cycled, and the inner door opened. What emerged was unlike anything any of them had expected. The being stood nearly 3 meters tall, but despite its size, it moved with perfect balance and control. Its body was lean and powerful, covered in what looked like natural armor that shifted color in the ship's lights. 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head that was recognizably intelligent, but everything about it spoke of a predator evolved to perfection. Its face was angular and sharp, with eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When it looked at the assembled humans, Hyunwoo felt as if he was being examined by something that could count his heartbeats and measure his fears just by watching him breathe. "I am Kethvar," the being said in a voice that was surprisingly gentle for something so obviously dangerous. "I greet you, small ones." Sujin worked frantically at her translation console, trying to identify the species. After several minutes, she looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, according to the database, this is impossible." "What do you mean, impossible?" "The computer identifies him as one of the Supreme Hunters, but that can't be right. They're supposed to be extinct. They disappeared from the galaxy over 1,000 years ago." Kethvar tilted his head, and Hyunwoo could swear he saw amusement in those alien features. "Not extinct, small speaker. We simply chose to watch rather than interfere. Until now." "Commander." Velmoth's voice cut through the ship's speakers, filled with anger and disbelief. "Human vessel, surrender the creature immediately. Supreme Hunters are enemies of all civilized species. They are monsters that must be destroyed." Kethvar listened to the alien commander's words without any change in expression. When the transmission ended, he looked directly at Captain Lee. "Your enemies seem to know something of my people's reputation. Are you here to help us or hurt us?" Captain Lee asked directly. "That depends," Kethvar replied. "Your species is young and small. Most young species prove themselves through strength or cunning, but my people have been watching humans for some time. You interest us for different reasons." "What reasons?" Before Kethvar could answer, the alien fleet opened fire. Not on the stellar wind, but on the bioship that hung motionless in space. Massive energy beams struck its hull, weapons powerful enough to crack planets. The humans watched in horror, expecting to see the strange vessel torn apart. Instead, the bioship seemed to absorb the attack. Its hull brightened as the energy struck it, but no damage appeared. The weapon's fire simply disappeared into its living surface like water soaking into sand. Commander Velmoth's voice crackled with rage. "All ships, concentrate fire on the creature's vessel. Destroy it now." The 7 warships unleashed everything they had. The space around the bioship lit up like a small sun as weapons designed to destroy space stations poured their fury into the living vessel. Still, it showed no sign of damage. Kethvar watched the attack with what looked like boredom. "They never learn," he said quietly. "How is your ship surviving that?" Taemin Yang asked, his professional interest overcoming his fear. "Survival is what my people do best, small warrior. We have had millions of years to perfect it." The weapons. Fire stopped as the alien ships exhausted their immediate energy reserves. Commander Velmoth sent another transmission, this time directly to Kethvar. "Supreme Hunter, withdraw now and we will not pursue you. This is between us and the humans." Kethvar moved closer to the observation window, looking out at the alien fleet. When he spoke, his voice carried easily through the ship's communication system, ensuring that every being in the area could hear him clearly. "Commander Velmoth of the Coalition Fleet, I have observed your interaction with these humans. You demand their surrender not because they have wronged you, but because you believe them weak. This is where you have made your error." "What error, monster?" "These humans are under my protection now." The silence that followed was complete. Even the background hum of the ship's system seemed to quiet as the implications sank in. A supreme hunter, a being from a species of legends, had just declared the humans under his protection. Commander Velmoth's laughter echoed through space. One creature against 7 warships. You may be hard to kill, Supreme Hunter, but you cannot protect them and fight us at the same time. Kethvar turned from the window to face the human crew. His alien features showed something that might have been a smile. Which among you speaks for your courage? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Captain Lee stepped forward, as did Tae-Min Yang. Nari Choi straightened her shoulders, ready to volunteer. Even Su-Jin moved closer, despite her fear. But it was Hyunwoo who surprised everyone, including himself, by speaking first. I do, he said, in a voice barely louder than a whisper. Kethavar's head turned toward the small engineer with obvious interest. You speak for their courage, little one? Hyunwoo's hands shook, but he nodded. Someone has to. For the first time since boarding their ship, the Supreme Hunter showed what was unmistakably approval. Kethavar studied Hyunwoo with eyes that seemed to look straight through him. The Supreme Hunter circled the small engineer slowly, like a predator examining potential prey. But there was no hunger in those alien features. Instead, Hyunwoo saw something that looked almost like recognition. You are afraid, Kethvar said simply. Hyunwoo nodded, not trusting his voice to work properly. Good. Fear keeps you alive. But you stepped forward despite that fear. This is what my people call true strength. Captain Lee moved closer to Hyunwoo, his protective instincts taking over. What do you want with him? I want to show him something, Kethvar replied. My ship has capabilities that your young minds cannot imagine. But those capabilities require more than mechanical operation. They require understanding. Through the observation windows, the alien fleet was regrouping. Their weapons had failed to damage the bioship, but Commander Velmoth was not giving up. The 7 warships spread out in a wide formation, clearly preparing for a different kind of attack. They will try to ram my vessel next, Kethvar said without looking at the enemy fleet. When that fails, they will target your ship directly, hoping to force me to choose between offense and protection. Su-Jin looked up from her communication station with worry clear on her face. The alien commander is demanding we surrender you to them. He says Supreme Hunters are a threat to all civilized life. Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter. Civilized. They use that word often, these young species, usually right before they do something completely savage. Are you a threat to us? Nari Choi asked directly. The Supreme Hunter considered her question seriously. I am dangerous, small healer. My people are the apex predators of this galaxy. We can kill anything that lives. But there is a difference between having the power to destroy and choosing to use it. Tae-Min Yang stepped forward, his hand resting on his weapon. And what do you choose? I choose to protect those worth protecting. Your species has caught our attention because you consistently make the same choice. Even when you are weak, even when you are afraid, humans protect others. The first alien warship began its ramming run toward the bioship. The massive vessel accelerated to dangerous speeds, clearly intending to smash through the living hull by sheer force. Hyunwoo watched in fascination as the bioship responded. Instead of trying to dodge or defend itself, it simply moved aside at the last possible moment. The warship shot past harmlessly, its crew probably thrown around by the sudden course change. Your enemies think like machines, Kethvar explained. They calculate force and mass and assume the outcome is predetermined. They do not understand that some things cannot be calculated. The second and third warships attempted the same attack, working together to try to catch the bioship between them. Again, the living vessel moved with fluid grace, avoiding both ships and leaving them to crash into each other in a tangle of twisted metal. Commander Velmoth's voice crackled with rage over the communication system. All ships, target the human vessel, destroy it immediately. This was exactly what Kethvar had predicted. The remaining alien ships turned their weapons toward the stellar wind, no longer caring about capturing humans alive. They intended to force the Supreme Hunter to watch his new allies die. Now they reveal their true nature, Kethvar said with disgust. When strength fails, they target the innocent. Can you protect us? Captain Lee asked. I can. But protection is not what your species needs to learn. Kethvar turned to Hyunwoo again. Small engineer, will you come with me to my ship? The request hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow. Leave the safety of the stellar wind to board an alien vessel with a creature that admitted to being an apex predator. Every rational part of his mind screamed that it was insane. Hyunwoo, no, Sujin said immediately. You don't know what he's planning. I know exactly what he's planning, Hyunwoo replied quietly. He looked at his friends, these people who had become his family among the stars. He's going to teach me something. Nari Choi pressed a small medical kit into his hands. Take this, and be careful. Tae Min Yang handed him a sidearm, though they both knew it would be useless against the forces they faced. Watch yourself out there. Captain Lee gripped his shoulder. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Hyunwoo said with more certainty than he felt. Someone has to learn what he wants to teach us. Kethvar led him to the airlock where the small transport craft waited. As they crossed from the stellar wind to the bioship, Hyunwoo felt a strange tingling sensation, as if the living vessel was examining him at a cellular level. The interior of the bioship was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Walls pulsed, with soft light that followed patterns too complex to follow. The floor beneath his feet felt warm and slightly soft, like walking on living tissue. Conduits that carried energy instead of blood ran along the ceiling, and the entire space hummed with life. This ship is alive, Hyunwoo said, stating the obvious but still amazed by it. All Supreme Hunter vessels are grown rather than built, Kethvar explained. They are partners, not tools. This ship responds to my thoughts and emotions. It shares my experiences and learns from them. They moved through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they passed. Hyunwoo realized that the ship was not just alive but intelligent. It was watching him, learning about him, deciding whether he could be trusted. They reached what might have been a command center, though it looked more like the inside of a living heart. Surfaces curved and flowed around them, and displays showed information in patterns of light that somehow made perfect sense to Hyunwoo's mind. Touch the interface, Kethvar instructed. Hyunwoo hesitated, then placed his palm on a warm, pulsing surface. Immediately, his mind filled with sensations he had no words for. He could feel the alien warships moving through space, could sense their crew's fear and anger, could even detect the emotional states of his friends aboard the stellar wind. This is how we hunt, Kethvar said softly. Not with bigger weapons or thicker armor. We hunt by understanding our prey better than they understand themselves. Through the living interface, Hyunwoo watched as the alien fleet prepared to destroy the stellar wind. He could feel their desperation, their anger at being outmatched by a single opponent, their willingness to kill innocents rather than admit defeat. They are afraid, he realized. Yes, and fear makes them dangerous in a different way. They will destroy everything rather than learn from their mistakes. The bioship began to move toward the alien fleet, and Hyunwoo felt its predatory joy through the interface. This was what it had been designed for, what it had been grown for. Not just to fight, but to hunt with perfect understanding of its prey. Are you going to kill them? Hyunwoo asked. Kethvar's response surprised him. That would be wasteful. Dead enemies learn nothing. I am going to teach them the same lesson I am teaching you. What lesson? That true strength is not about having power over others. It is about choosing what to do with that power. The bioship accelerated toward the enemy fleet, and Hyunwoo realized he was about to witness something that would change his understanding of what it meant to be strong. The bioship moved toward the alien fleet like a living shadow. Through the interface, Hyunwoo could feel its excitement, the pure joy of a predator finally allowed to do what it was born for. But this was not the mindless hunger he had expected. This was art. Kethvar stood beside him, his long fingers dancing across surfaces that responded to his touch. Watch carefully, small engineer, Your species will need to understand this if you are to survive among the stars. The first alien warship opened fire as soon as they came into range. Energy beams that could melt through battleship armor struck the bioship's hull. But instead of trying to absorb the attack like before, the living vessel twisted away from the weapon's fire with impossible grace. It moved like water, flowing around a stone, never quite where the enemy expected it to be. They are still thinking like machines, Kethvar explained as he guided the ship through the attack. They aim where we are, not where we will be. They calculate our speed and trajectory, but they cannot calculate instinct. Through the living interface, Hyunwoo could sense the confusion aboard the enemy ships. Their targeting computers could not lock onto something that moved with such fluid unpredictability. Every shot missed by fractions, close enough to show the aliens how helpless they were but never actually threatening. The bioship swept past the first warship and struck it, with something that was not quite a weapon. Instead of destroying the vessel, it somehow drained power from the alien ship's weapons and engines. The warship went dark, drifting helplessly in space but with its crew still alive. You could have killed them, Hyunwoo observed. Yes. But what would that teach them? Dead enemies make the same mistakes forever. Living enemies might learn better. The second warship tried a different approach, launching dozens of smaller attack craft to swarm around the bioship. The tiny fighters buzzed around them like angry insects, firing continuously but unable to land a significant hit. Kethvar responded by releasing something from his ship's hull. Hundreds of small flying creatures emerged from the bioship's skin. They looked like metallic butterflies, but each one moved with deadly purpose. Instead of destroying the enemy fighters, they attached themselves to the small craft and somehow convinced their pilots to return to their mothership. The enemy pilots reported that their weapons had stopped working, and their navigation systems were showing false readings. "How did you do that?" Hyunwoo asked. "My ship's children spoke to their machines, explained that fighting was pointless. Most intelligent systems can be reasoned with if you know how to communicate." The third warship attempted to ram them, just as the others had tried earlier. But this time, Kethvar did not simply dodge. The bioship flowed around the attacking vessel like liquid, somehow ending up above and behind it. Gentle pressure from the living hull guided the warship into a slow spin that left its crew dizzy and disoriented, but unharmed. Commander Velmoth's voice cut through space, filled with desperate rage. "What are you doing to my ships? Fight us properly, monster!" Kethvar's response came through the bioship's communication system. "I am fighting you properly, young fool. This is how apex predators hunt. We do not waste energy on unnecessary killing. We demonstrate superiority until our prey understands its place in the natural order." The fourth warship tried to escape, accelerating away from the battle at maximum speed. The bioship followed effortlessly, overtaking the fleeing vessel without apparent effort. Instead of attacking, it simply paced the enemy ship, staying just outside weapon range. To the alien crew, it must have felt like being stalked by something that could kill them anytime it chose. Through the interface, Hyunwoo could feel the growing panic aboard all the enemy vessels. Their crews had entered this battle confident in their superiority. They had more ships, bigger weapons, and numerical advantage. But none of that mattered against an opponent that operated by completely different rules. "They understand now," Kethvar said with satisfaction. "Numbers mean nothing when you do not know how to use them. Superior weapons are useless if you cannot hit your target. They are learning that there are forms of strength they never imagined." The fifth warship tried something desperate. It fired all its weapons at once, not at the bioship, but at empty space around it. The idea was to create a wall of energy that nothing could pass through. For a moment, Hyunwoo thought it might actually work. Instead, the bioship simply phased through the energy barrier, like it was not there. The living vessel existed partially outside normal space, able to slip between dimensions when necessary. The alien weapons fire passed harmlessly through the area where the ship should have been. "Impossible," came Commander Velmoth's voice, now tinged with fear instead of anger. "Nothing is impossible," Kethvar replied calmly. "You simply lack the imagination to see all possibilities." The sixth warship made a final, desperate attack on the stellar wind itself. If they could not defeat the Supreme Hunter, perhaps they could force him to choose between offense and protection. Energy beams lanced toward the human freighter, intent on destroying it completely. But Hyunwoo was learning to think like a predator now. Through the interface, he could sense what Kethvar intended to do. The bioship did not race to intercept the attack. Instead, it released a cloud of something that looked like glowing dust between the weapon's fire and the stellar wind. The energy beam struck the dust cloud and simply disappeared, absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space. The attack never even came close to the human ship. "How did you know that would work?" Hyunwoo asked. "I did not know. I believed it would work based on understanding the nature of energy and matter. Sometimes, small engineer, strength comes from acting on faith, rather than certainty." Commander Velmoth's flagship, the seventh and largest warship, had not moved during the entire battle. Now it began to advance toward them, all weapons charging for a final desperate assault. "He will throw everything he has at us," Kethvar said. "This is where the hunt becomes dangerous. Cornered prey often becomes the most violent. Can we handle it? We will find out together. But first, you must decide something important, small engineer." "What?" Kethvar turned to face him directly, those alien eyes boring into his soul. "Do you wish to remain a passenger on this hunt, or do you wish to become a hunter yourself?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Through the interface, Hyunwoo could feel the bioship waiting for his answer. Even the living vessel seemed curious about what choice this small human would make. "I want to learn," Hyunwoo said finally. "Good. Then take control of the ship's defensive systems while I deal with the commander personally." Before Hyunwoo could ask what that meant, Kethvar moved to another part of the command center and began preparing equipment that looked like armor designed for a single occupant. "You're going to board their ship?" "Yes. Some lessons can only be taught face to face." The bioship shuddered slightly as Commander Velmoth's flagship opened fire with everything it had. Energy beams powerful enough to crack moons struck their hull, while Hyunwoo frantically worked the living controls, trying to keep them alive long enough for Kethvar to complete his mission. For the first time since meeting the Supreme Hunter, Hyunwoo truly felt the responsibility of protecting others resting on his shoulders. The lives of everyone aboard the Stellar Wind, and even the enemy crews, now depended on what he did next. Alone in the command center of the bioship, Hyunwoo felt the weight of responsibility settle over him like a heavy blanket. Through the living interface, he could sense everything happening around them. Commander Velmoth's flagship poured weapons fire into their hull, while the other disabled warships drifted helplessly in space, their crews watching the final confrontation. The bioship's defensive systems were unlike anything he had ever imagined. Instead of energy shields or armor plating, the living vessel protected itself by understanding the attacks coming toward it. Hyunwoo found that he did not need to consciously control anything. He simply had to want to protect everyone, and the ship responded to his intentions. Energy beams that should have torn through their hull were absorbed and redirected. Missile attacks were confused by false sensor readings that sent them spinning, harmlessly into space. The bioship fought like a living creature, adapting to each new threat with creative solutions rather than brute force. Through his communicator, Sujin's voice crackled with worry. "Hyunwoo, are you all right? That ship is throwing everything it has at you." "I'm fine," he replied, surprised to find that it was true. Despite being in the middle of the most dangerous situation of his life, he felt strangely calm. The bioship's presence in his mind was comforting, like having a wise friend offering guidance. "The alien commander is demanding your surrender," Captain Lee reported. "He says he'll stop firing if you return to our ship immediately." Hyunwoo watched through the ship's senses as Kethvar launched himself toward the enemy flagship in a small personal craft. The Supreme Hunter moved through space like he owned it, dodging defensive fire with casual ease. "Tell the commander, his offer is declined," Hyunwoo said. "Someone needs to finish this properly." Nari Choi's voice joined the conversation. "Hyunwoo, that doesn't sound like you. You're scaring us." She was right. The small, quiet engineer who had boarded this ship was changing. Through the bioship's interface, he was learning what it felt like to be a predator instead of prey. The sensation was both terrifying and exciting. "I'm still me," he assured his friends. "I'm just learning what I'm capable of." Kethavar had reached the enemy flagship and was cutting his way through the hull like it was made of paper. Through the living interface, Hyunwoo could follow the Supreme Hunter's progress as he moved through the enemy ship. Kethavar was not killing the alien crew members he encountered. Instead, he was simply moving past them so quickly that they could not react. The remaining enemy warships tried to help their flagship by targeting the bioship again, but their weapons had been drained or damaged in the earlier encounters. Only a few managed to fire, and their attacks were weak and poorly coordinated. Hyunwoo realized that he could destroy all of them right now if he chose. The bioship had capabilities that could turn enemy vessels into scrap metal in seconds. But that was not what Kethavar had wanted him to learn. Instead of attacking, he extended the bioship's influence toward the damaged enemy vessels. The living ship's children, those butterfly-like creatures, swarmed over the disabled warships. But instead of causing more damage, they began to repair critical systems, life support, emergency power, basic communications, enough to keep the enemy crews alive and safe, but not enough to make them dangerous again. "What are you doing?" Commander Velmoth's voice cut through space, filled with confusion rather than anger now. "Keeping you alive," Hyunwoo replied simply. Aboard the flagship, Kethavar had reached the bridge. Through their connection, Hyunwoo could sense the Supreme Hunter confronting the alien commander face to face. There was no violence, no dramatic battle. Kethavar simply stood there while Commander Velmoth experienced what it meant to be in the presence of an apex predator. The alien commander's rage dissolved into fear, then into something like understanding. Through the bioship's senses, Hyunwoo could feel the moment when Velmoth truly comprehended how outmatched his fleet had been from the beginning. "You could have destroyed us all in the first minute," the commander said, his voice carrying through the communication systems. "Yes." Kethavar's reply was gentle but firm. "But what would that have taught you?" I do not understand." "That is why you lost this battle before it began. You sought to destroy those weaker than yourself because you believed that strength came from the ability to cause harm. You never learned that true strength comes from choosing when not to use your power." The weapons fire from the flagship stopped completely. Through the interface, Hyunwoo could sense the confusion spreading through all the enemy crews. They had expected death or slavery as the price of their defeat. Instead, they had been shown mercy by the very beings they had tried to destroy. Kethavar's voice echoed through space, addressing all the ships present. "Small ones who sought to prove your strength through conquest, you have learned today that strength has many forms. The humans you tried to capture showed you one kind of strength. When they chose to resist despite being outnumbered and outgunned." Hyunwoo felt heat rise in his cheeks as the Supreme Hunter continued. "One of them showed another kind of strength when he chose to speak for his people's courage despite his fear. And today, that same small human chose to use the power I gave him to protect his enemies rather than destroy them." Through the bioship's sensors, Hyunwoo could feel the attention of every crew member in the system focusing on him. The weight of their regard was overwhelming. "I just did what felt right," he said quietly. "Yes," Kethavar replied. "And that is exactly why your species interests us." Commander Velmoth's voice came through the communication system one more time, but now it carried respect instead of hostility. "Supreme Hunter, I have been a military commander for 20 years. I have conquered 12 star systems and defeated hundreds of enemies. But I have never seen anything like what happened here today." "What did you see, young commander?" "I saw strength that did not need to prove itself through destruction. I saw power used to protect rather than to conquer. I saw—" The alien commander paused, searching for words. "I saw what we could become if we were worthy of it." Kethavar began his return journey to the bioship, leaving Commander Velmoth to contemplate what he had learned. Through the living interface, Hyunwoo could sense a change in the alien crews. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Curiosity, respect, even hope. "What happens now?" Hyunwoo asked as the Supreme Hunter re-entered the bioship's command center. Now, small engineer, you must make a choice that will affect not just yourself but your entire species. What choice? Kethvar moved to stand beside him at the living interface. My people have been watching younger species for millions of years. Most prove themselves through conquest, technology, or cunning. A few rare species show us something different. The wisdom to know when not to use power. The strength to protect rather than destroy. The courage to extend mercy even to enemies. Hyunwoo felt his heart racing as he began to understand what the Supreme Hunter was suggesting. Your species has shown all of these qualities today. The question now is whether you are ready to learn what we can teach you, whether humanity is ready to become more than it currently is. Through the bioship's senses, Hyunwoo could feel his friends aboard the Stellar Wind waiting for his return. He could sense the alien crews contemplating their defeat and what it meant. He could feel the vast emptiness of space around them, filled with possibilities he had never imagined. The choice Kethvar offered would change everything. Standing in the heart of the bioship, surrounded by pulsing walls that carried the wisdom of millions of years, Hyunwoo felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. Through the living interface, he could sense everything happening in the space around them. The disabled alien warships drifted in formation, their crews quiet and thoughtful. The Stellar Wind waited for his return, his friends worried about him, but trusting his judgment. Tell me about the choice, he said to Kethvar. The Supreme Hunter moved to another part of the command center, and the bioship's walls shifted to show images of distant star systems, planets filled with life, young civilizations taking their first steps into space, older species struggling with the same questions of power and responsibility that had brought them to this moment. For 10 million years, my people have served as guardians, Kethvar explained. We watch over younger species, protecting them from threats they cannot handle, guiding them when they ask for guidance. It is not an easy path. We have seen promising civilizations destroy themselves. We have watched species we cared about choose conquest over cooperation. And sometimes you find species worth saving. Sometimes we find species worth partnering with. There is a difference, small engineer. Saving implies that the rescued remain dependent on their rescuer. Partnership means both sides contribute something valuable. The images shifted to show Supreme Hunters working alongside other species. Not as masters and servants, but as equals. Despite the obvious differences in power and capability, Hyunwoo saw worlds where different kinds of beings worked together to solve problems that none could handle alone. What would humanity contribute to such a partnership? Kethvar's alien features showed something that might have been a smile. The same thing you contributed today. The wisdom to use power responsibly. The instinct to protect rather than conquer. The courage to show mercy even when victory is certain. Through the bioship's communication system, Captain Lee's voice reached them. Hyunwoo, the alien commander, wants to speak with all of us. He says he has something important to discuss. Put him through, Hyunwoo replied. Commander Velmoth's voice carried across space, but the tone was completely different from the threatening demands he had made earlier. Now he sounded like a being who had learned something that changed his understanding of the universe. Supreme Hunter, human crew of the Stellar Wind, I speak not just for myself but for all the ships under my command. What we witnessed today has shown us how little we understood about true strength. And what have you learned, young commander? Kethvar asked. We learned that power without wisdom is weakness. We learned that the ability to destroy is less valuable than the choice not to destroy. We learned that some beings are strong enough to help their enemies rather than simply defeat them. Hyunwoo felt a warmth spreading through his chest as he realized what the alien commander was describing. Velmoth continued. My fleet came here to capture humans because we believed them weak and suitable for labor. Instead, we found beings who showed courage in the face of certain death, who chose to help us even after we threatened them, who demonstrated the kind of strength we never learned to recognize. What will you do now? Captain Lee asked. With your permission, we would like to escort your ship safely to your destination, not as conquerors or captors, but as beings who hope to learn something about the kind of strength you have shown. Us. Sujin's voice carried wonder. Are you asking to be our allies? We are asking to be your students, Velmoth replied humbly. Kethavar turned to Hyunwoo. You see, this is how change truly begins. Not through conquest or force, but through example. Your actions today have started something that will spread throughout this region of space. But what about the choice you mentioned? The choice is whether you will return to your life as a maintenance engineer on a cargo ship, or whether you will help your species take its place as partners with the Supreme Hunters. Hyunwoo looked around the bioship's living command center. He could feel its ancient wisdom, its patient strength, its willingness to serve something greater than itself. Through the interface, he sensed the alien crews contemplating new ways to think about strength and power. He felt his friends aboard the Stellar Wind, proud of what he had accomplished but ready to welcome him home. If I choose to return to the Stellar Wind, what happens then? Then you return to your life and we continue to watch your species develop. Eventually, when humanity as a whole is ready, we will make contact again. And if I choose to stay with you, then you become the first human to join the Supreme Hunters. You help us understand your species better while learning to use capabilities you cannot imagine. You become a bridge between our peoples, helping to guide humanity toward a future where they serve as protectors rather than conquerors. The choice was not just about his personal future. It was about humanity's place in the galaxy, about whether his species would learn to use power responsibly or repeat the mistakes of so many others. There's something I need to know, Hyunwoo said. Are the Supreme Hunters really as powerful as you seem? Kethavar's response surprised him. We are as weak as any other species, small engineer. We simply learned long ago that true strength does not come from what you can do to others. It comes from what you choose to do for others. Through the bioship's interface, Hyunwoo could sense the truth of those words. The Supreme Hunters were not stronger because they had better weapons or tougher bodies. They were stronger because they had learned to think beyond themselves, to use their capabilities in service of something larger. I need to talk to my friends first, he said. Of course. Hyunwoo opened a communication channel to the Stellar Wind. Sujin, Captain Lee, everyone. I need to tell you about a choice I have to make. He explained everything Kethavar had told him. The opportunity for humanity to partner with the Supreme Hunters, the responsibility that came with such power, the chance to help guide his species toward a better future. When he finished, there was a long silence. Then Nari Choi spoke first. Hyunwoo, 3 hours ago you were fixing power couplings in the engine room. Now you're talking about representing all of humanity to ancient alien guardians. Are you sure you're ready for this? I don't know if I'm ready, he admitted. But I know it's important. Captain Lee's voice carried the wisdom of years spent among the stars. Sometimes the most important choices are made by people who don't feel ready for them. The question is not whether you're ready, but whether you're willing to grow into what's needed. Tai Min-yang added his thoughts. You showed courage when you stepped forward to speak for us. You showed wisdom when you chose to protect the enemy, crews instead of destroying them. If anyone from our ship is going to represent humanity to these Supreme Hunters, it should be you. We'll miss you, Sujin said quietly. But we understand why this is important. Hyunwoo felt tears in his eyes as he realized what his friends were telling him. They were giving him permission to leave them behind for something larger than any of them had imagined possible. I accept, he said to Kethavar. I'll stay with you and learn what you can teach me. The Supreme Hunter nodded with approval. Then welcome to the Ancient Order of Guardians, Hyunwoo Kim. Your real education begins now. Through the bioship's communication system, Commander Velmoth's voice reached them one more time. Supreme Hunter, before you depart, I must ask something. Will you teach us as well? Not to become like you, but to become better versions of ourselves? Kethavar looked at Hyunwoo. What do you think, young guardian? Should we extend that opportunity to former enemies who have shown the wisdom to learn from their mistakes? Hyunwoo thought about the choice he had made to help the alien crews even after they had threatened his friends. He thought about the courage it must have taken for Commander Velmoth to admit his errors and ask for guidance. Yes, he said. Everyone deserves the chance to become something better than what they were. Then it is decided. Commander Velmoth, you and your crews may accompany us to the nearest Supreme Hunter outpost. There you will learn alongside Hyunwoo what it truly means to be strong. As the bioship prepared to depart, Hyunwoo took one last look at the stellar wind through the living interface. His friends waved at him through the observation windows, proud and sad and hopeful all at the same time. He had started this day as a small, quiet engineer that most people barely noticed. He was ending it as humanity's first representative to an ancient order of galactic guardians. The transformation seemed impossible, but as Kethvar had taught him, some things could not be calculated. They could only be experienced and believed. The bioship engaged its impossible drive and leaped toward distant stars, carrying a former maintenance engineer toward a destiny he never could have imagined. Behind them, the stellar wind continued on its peaceful journey, its crew forever changed by their encounter with true strength. And throughout the galaxy, the word began to spread. The Terrans were no longer small and weak. They never had been. They simply needed someone to help others see what they truly were, a species with the wisdom to use power as a shield rather than a sword. In the end, that was the greatest strength of all.